Welcome back to the Book Summary Podcast. I'm your host, Dario Gonzalez, and today we will be continuing with Chapter 2 of Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Promise. So, last episode, we left Team Avatar as they arrived at the gates of Yu Dao, and that's where we pick things up. So, as Team Avatar arrives, they meet with a band of rebels known as the Freedom Fighters who are protesting at the gates. One of the leaders is a girl named Smellerby. Now, Smellerby is a character they have met on previous occasions and who they are friendly with now. Upon their arrival, the Freedom Fighters are ecstatic to know that the Avatar is on their side and want to know what the plan of attack is. So Aang asks them to be patient and says that he wants to talk to Zuko first. So they inform him, hey, yeah, the city's on lockdown, so we can't really go in right now. And Aang tells them, no problem. And he just pulls out his glider, which is essentially, imagine like a bow staff or a big stick that turns into a giant kite, and he can use his airbending abilities to fly with it. Anyway, so he pulls that out, turns to Katara and asks her if are you ready, sweetie? To which Katara replies with, I'm ready, sweetie. And they take off and they go through the wall, leaving Toph, the Freedom Fighters, Sokka, and everybody else vomiting because of how corny they are and the way they talk to each other. Anyway, once on the other side of the wall, they're approached by a group of guards who let them know that the city's locked down for everybody, even the Avatar, by Zuko's orders, and Aang tries to reason with them, but the guards attack anyway. To which, honestly, respect to them for having the guts to attack the most powerful being in the world, but also, like, how stupid can you be, right? Not a good idea. Anyway, Aang is trying his best not to hurt anybody, mainly just dodging their attacks, but after a close call with, a little bit of fire on his clothes, Katara decides, you know what, enough of this, stop trying to set my boyfriend on fire, and she starts kicking ass and taking names. In the middle of her attack, Zuko comes out of nowhere, twists her arm, and manages to subdue her. He then tells her to try to calm down, which is, a terrible thing to say to somebody who's angry. Shockingly, it doesn't work, and this really pisses off Aang as well. And and they start having the classic argument of, that where neither wants to back down, where, let go of my girlfriend, you're hurting her, and your girlfriend's hurting my people, you attacked us, blah, blah, blah. So they're not really talking to each other, just kind of yelling at each other. So Aang is like, you know what, enough of this, claims that he sees that now Zuko's really changed, and maybe a promise is a promise. So he goes into Avatar mode, which is basically his superpower mode, right? This makes Zuko poop his pants because he realizes what's about to happen, and he lets go of Katara, and she rushes over to Aang to try to calm him down. She and her sweeties are successful, and Aang calms down, and he apologizes to Zuko for what he was about to do. Zuko agrees that they both need to calm down and talk, which is a smart move if you're Zuko. Anyway, he then takes them both out for a walk through the city and shows them how the members of the Fire Nation and the Earth Nation have worked together to create wonderful things, and that's the reason why this city has become one of the richest cities in the world. After walking around a little, Katara points out that, yeah, from what she sees, it looks like it's a wealthy city, but mainly the Fire Nation citizens tend to be doing better than the Earth Nation citizens. They control most of the wealth, and they look to be the masters in the situation, the people of power. And to which Zuko replies, you know what, sometimes life ain't fair. Anyway, after hearing everything that he had to say, Aang points out that progress is good and all, but by walking away from the Harmony Restoration movement, he's going to start a war. So Zuko tells the story of why he changed his mind, and we go into a flashback. The flashback brings us back to the moment that Zuko gets called a coward and a traitor by the mayor of Yu Dao, and he was really upset. You guys may remember that. So Zuko obviously didn't like that, and he orders his guards to arrest the man. Suddenly, a wall of earth blocks their way. So the wall was put up by the mayor's wife, who's an earthbender, and who apologizes profusely for her husband's failure to control his tongue. Now, Zuko is really stunned by the fact that she's an earthbender, and is even more stunned still when the mayor's wife informs him that their daughter, Corey, who he had imprisoned in the previous episode, is an earthbender as well. Corey takes the opportunity to show off some of her earthbending skills, uses earthbending to break her chains, and recover her Morning Star, which we can now see is not actually a metal spiked ball, but it's actually a rock with metal spikes, so she can actually use earthbending to control, the weapon. Anyway, Corey takes advantage of Zuko's shock to inform him that she might be an earthbender like her mother, but she's also a proud citizen of the Fire Nation, and that, unlike him, her father always taught her to be loyal to it. So again, at a loss for words, the mayor's wife takes that opportunity and invites Zuko to stay in Yu Dao for a few days so he can witness, firsthand what their life is like, how the two people work together. And with that, we return to present time and Zuko's conversation with Aang and Katara, where Zuko continues to explain that after seeing what they had built there for many generations and realizing that the Harmony Restoration movement would destroy all of it, he changed his mind. He also acknowledges that Aang may have defeated the Fire Nation, but that they still deserve some respect. Aang is kind of upset by this because he reminds him that he did not defeat the Fire Nation, but that they, together, defeated the Fire Lord. And that in order for there to be harmony and balance between the nations, there had to be 4 separate nations. You can't have harmony with one nation colonizing the other. You can't have one occupying the other. Anyway, Aang and Zuko start yelling at each other, and while they're doing that, Katara starts looking around the city and its people, and she suggests that, maybe Yu Dao can be an exception to all this, but Zuko immediately shoots that down, saying that no, it has to be all of them. So this leads to more arguing, and Katara finally convinces them that, hey, you know what? The Earth King has to be a part of this conversation, so Zuko agrees that he would meet with Aang and the Earth King if Aang and Katara can convince him to talk. Anyway, with that, Aang and Katara leave. Outside the city gates, people are getting pretty restless, and Sokka, who's trying to calm them down, gets the rock thrown at him because, you're like a stupid water tribe, dude. You have nothing to do here. This causes Toph to be seriously pissed off and flexes her earthbending skills to bring order to the situation. It's like, what you gonna do, bitches? What you gonna do? No, nothing? That's what I thought. Anyway, so she takes control of the situation, and that's when Aang and Katara return with the bad news, and they ask Smellerbee to give them time. Smellerbee and the Freedom Fighters don't like it, but they promise to give Aang and the crew 4 days before they take matters into their own hands. So, from there, we cut to Team Avatar on Appa's back, where they're trying to assess the situation. Now, naturally, Toph, who's a citizen of the Earth Nation, is clearly exasperated by Zuko's action and really thinks that he should go and leave the Earth Kingdom alone. Katara explains how things are more complicated than they seem, and Aang then takes the opportunity to thank Katara for stopping him before he did something in anger that he would have really regretted. This leads them to share one of their sweetie embraces, which grosses everybody out. So, Toph, having had enough of the lovey-dovey couple, decides it's time for her to leave and get back to her students. Toph then invites Sokka to join her, and Sokka, who really doesn't want to be a third wheel to Aang and Katara, gladly accepts. Now, at this point, the story splits into 3 main adventures: the story of Aang and Katara, the story of Zuko, and Toph and Sokka. They all have their own adventures, they all do their own separate things, but the story jumps between them a lot. So in order to keep things easier to follow, I will be going through each story individually. So I may spend more time with a few characters for a little bit, but I'll be jumping back just once or twice maybe so that it's easier for you to follow. So with that, we return to Zuko at the Fire Nation's capital. Now, as he arrives at the royal palace, he is greeted by May, his girlfriend. And May's an interesting character in her own right, so I'll give you a brief history of her. She was the daughter of a Fire Nation governor and a very skilled fighter, particularly with knives and throwing them. So she, along with another girl named Ty Lee, were one of the closest allies of Zuko's evil sister, Azula, and therefore they were an enemy of Team Avatar for a while. As the story progressed, she and Zuko got closer, and she stopped being one of the bad girls, and when Zuko returned to the Fire Nation, those two eventually started dating. And while we're on the subject, Ty Lee, Azula's other close ally, she is also a talented warrior who uses precision attacks to block people's chi, which basically means that she attacks people and their nerve endings and shuts down their body's ability to move or to bend. Anyway, at the end of the series, Ty Lee ended up joining the good guys, just the same way Mai did, and she left with Suki, who you may remember from last episode as Sokka's girlfriend, and she left with them to Kyoshi Island, where she became a Kyoshi warrior. Anyway, with that out of the way, Zuko gets greeted by Mai, and she's not happy about the fact that she found out that her boyfriend left the capital via edicts that their soldiers posted around town. So it's like, hey, I found out that you left town via the news. What the hell? She also reminds him that he should talk to her whenever he's having troubles, and Zuko apologizes, claims it would never happen. Mai then takes a good look at him, and she claims that he looks terrible and that she's really worried about his lack of sleep. So, in order to help him feel better, she upgraded his guards by recruiting Suki, Ty Lee, and the rest of the Kyoshi warriors to be his new guard. That night, however, Zuko once again wakes up in a panic in the middle of it, and he's like, somebody's killing me, so they're trying to kill me. So he runs out, has a conversation with his guards, Suki and Ty Lee, who claim nothing's happened. They try to calm him down, but he decides to go for a walk alone in order to, clear his head. His walk, however, leads him to the prison, and more specifically to his father Osai's cell. There, he pours some tea and asks him for advice. So, with that, I think it's a good place to stop, and we will continue the story on the next episode. As always, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.